All right, welcome back this week on the couch with Dan and Dane. Today we're actually going to talk about pretty much, I'm not going to say anti-boomers or anything like that, but we're going to talk about the difference with getting into the market back then, 40 years ago, versus getting into the market now and the changes involved with that. So take it away, Dan, and then I'll finish.
Yeah, well, it's always been out there, right? That you see it in the media, like the younger generations, I'll call it our generations, are a little bit resentful of, let's call it our parents' generations, for how much wealth they've made in the property market and how difficult it is for us to now be able to enter the market compared to what it was like. Because if you looked at the numbers, and we've done some quick calculations in the background, I'm not going to get the whiteboard out and show you today, but back then it probably took about 2 years worth of saving on the average wage to be able to save your deposit. Versus now, you're going to be talking about like 5 to 10 years on an average salary to save your deposit, right? And that's a significant or a stark difference in the amount of time it takes you to save your deposit. And you know what? Back then, you could probably buy a house for $40,000. What would you do to get one of those these days, right?
Oh, anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a lot easier to put together your deposit back then versus what it is now, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think another big point too is to always measure your expectations. Okay, so I would love to live on Sydney Harbour like anybody else, but I don't have the money to do that, right? So when you are looking at, or you're sitting in Brisbane going, hey, I want to be in Paddington and I deserve to be there, and it's the boomers' fault that I'm not in Paddington straight off the cuff. A lot of the time when you look at them, they weren't in those areas they're in now straight away either, because wealth is built over time. So it's all about making sure that you are going to a location where your portfolio is manageable, because you don't want to be mortgaged up to the eyeballs eating 2-minute noodles. Like, make sure that with what you're earning and comparatively what you're going to buy is a manageable process for you. So when you're looking at locations, it's all about forward planning into a location, because you find with polycentric cities and as hubs develop and stuff, like where Dan is now used to be a bloody milk farm.
Mate, it was a sheep farm here like 40 years ago. There was only 2 houses in the area, and they were the people who were the farmers. It was dirt roads. We're only 5 kilometres as the crow flies to the third biggest capital city in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure people weren't fucking climbing over each other trying to live here back then. They probably were like, no, I'm not going to live out there. So it's all about measuring your expectations and make sure that you don't freak out about it, and because time is going to be your biggest asset.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, right, let's take ourselves back. Let's take ourselves back 20 years, and the average house price was substantially less than what it is now. Like, let's call it down at $350,000, for example, versus now it's up at like $700,000-800,000. So like double the price over that time. Let's fast forward then and think about what it's going to be like in another 10, 15 years, 20 years time.
Oh, man.
Like, it's not going to get easier. Like, looking back in time, in 20 years, you'll look back and you'll go like, bloody hell, I wish I did it back in 2023 or 2024, right? Because the lifestyles that we live and the way that the loan structures are done by the banks, they're going to be able to free up more money. They might move it from a 30-year loan right up to a 35-year loan or a 40-year loan over time, because our supers are being pushed out, so we'll be working till we're 70. So all of a sudden, when you think of all of these policy decisions that get done by the government, they're going to allow and incentivize the property market to continue to expand over time.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to get any easier. If you can do it, bloody do it now. Do it yesterday if you possibly can, right?
Absolutely. Great advice there. Anyway, that's it for this week on the couch with Dan and Dane. We'll see you next week.